Okay, so today we're going to dive deep into all these sources you've given us about Elvis Presley,
Okay.
specifically his relationship with Sheila Ryan.
Right.
You've given us YouTube transcripts,
Hmm.
articles from like Elvis fan sites and blogs,
Interesting.
a listing from a memorabilia auction, and even an interview with Elvis's dad, Vernon.
Wow, that's a lot to cover.
Yeah. So our goal is to kind of go through all this material and try to pick out the most interesting and revealing pieces
Okay.
and get a better picture of this particular chapter in Elvis's life.
Sounds good.
What's fascinating right off the bat is how Sheila Ryan really seems to have made a big impression on Elvis.
I see.
I mean, according to her in the Jungle Room podcast transcript
Okay.
and that Elvis Australia interview,
Mhm.
she talked about their first meeting in Vegas.
Right.
And it was pretty impactful for her. She actually used the words boom dot magic
Wow.
and said she just knew instantly they'd be spending a lot of time together.
Really?
She even called it fate.
Wow, so she felt it right away.
Apparently, to get her attention, Elvis threw a grape at her.
He threw what?
A grape.
Okay.
Yeah, and his first words to her were, "I'm sorry."
That's kind of a funny way to start a relationship.
Yeah, that Greek throwing incident, it's almost symbolic.
Like-
This playful, kind of unexpected gesture that actually worked.
Right.
And that immediate feeling of destiny that Sheila described,
Yeah.
it really speaks to the intensity that seemed to be a part of so many of Elvis's close relationships.
That makes sense.
Do you think this instant spark was like a common thing for Elvis?
That's a really good question. I mean, it definitely comes up a lot in stories about his other relationships.
Yeah.
But with Sheila, it's like this almost fairy tale kind of beginning,
Right.
which we should talk about more later on.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of their relationship, your sources say it lasted about 2 years in the mid-70s.
Okay.
The Elvis Australia interview actually refers to it as a big date for 2 years.
A big date, huh?
Yeah, pretty interesting, right?
That's a long date.
That's a pretty significant amount of time and suggests it was more than just a fling.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
2 years during that time in Elvis's life.
Yeah.
With all the pressure and everything he was going through,
Mm-hmm.
it does suggest there was a real connection there.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder what it was about Sheila that kept him interested for that long.
Exactly. So let's dig into what their time together was actually like.
Okay.
Sheila described it as being really childlike.
Who?
They were always trying to outdo each other with these silly antics and pranks, and even sneaking out for ice cream in the middle of the night.
Like little kids.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like they had a lot of fun and kept things light.
That's a nice image. Them finding these moments of just simple fun, you know, sneaking out for ice cream, despite
Yeah.
being Elvis Presley with all that entails.
Right.
It kind of hints at him wanting some kind of normalcy in his life.
Yeah,
And maybe Sheila was someone he could just relax and be goofy with.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's another source you gave us. Elvis's friend coached Sheila Ryan on how to be the perfect phony girlfriend for Elvis. And it gives us a very different perspective. It says that Sheila actually felt pressured to act a certain way to meet Elvis's expectations.
Okay.
Apparently, Joe Esposito, one of Elvis's close friends, actually gave her advice on how to react to his gifts.
Really?
Yeah, Elvis loved giving gifts. So
Yeah, I've heard that.
Sheila even said she felt like a phony, especially when Elvis gave her a Corvette.
A Corvette. Wow.
It was a huge gesture, but she just couldn't react authentically.
I can see why.
It was the first thing she'd ever owned.
That's a lot of pressure to deal with.
It really highlights how complicated it could be to be close to Elvis.
Yeah.
I mean, his generosity seems genuine, but
Mhm.
the fact that Sheila felt she had to be coached on how to receive his gifts,
Right.
it just points to this potential power imbalance, you know?
Yeah.
And the artificiality that can come with relationships with really famous people.
It's like you're not just dating a regular person.
Yeah, and that feeling of not being able to genuinely react to a brand new Corvette, I mean, that's something most people would be thrilled about.
Totally.
It just emphasizes the pressure she was under.
For sure. And it wasn't just about the gifts.
No.
That same article talks about how demanding Elvis could be even early on.
Oh, right.
Sheila talked about an incident after their first date
Okay.
where Elvis was actually furious
What?
because she didn't stay overnight in his suite.
Really?
Yeah, so you could see his expectations for her were there right from the start.
Wow.
She said the whole dynamic shifted from that fun, adolescent kind of thing
Right.
to one where she was expected to take care of him.
Oh.
She had to fetch things for him at night, water pills, even Jell-O.
Jell-O.
Yeah, and even read to him.
That's a pretty big change.
Yeah, Going from playful to demanding like that paints a picture of someone who needs things a certain way in a relationship.
Right.
It seems like Sheila might have seen it as this exciting big date at first,
Yeah.
but quickly found herself more in a caretaker role.
Yeah, that's a good point. And those requests for medication right alongside Jell-O?
Right.
That's a pretty stark contrast, isn't it?
It really is. It shows the two sides of his life at that time.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
But even with those challenges, Sheila, in her Elvis Australia interview, she really focused on the good parts of their relationship.
Okay.
She said it was different because she didn't nag him or get jealous.
Interesting.
She even said she didn't expect him to be monogamous.
Wow.
And that Elvis would tell her about other women when he came back.
And she was okay with that.
She said they would laugh about it. She felt secure and that Elvis didn't have to explain himself or be afraid or hide things from her.
That's pretty remarkable.
She also talked about a very active, passionate, romantic life.
Okay.
Directly contradicting those rumors about Elvis's lack of intimacy.
It's fascinating how she kind of frames her acceptance of the situation. Not being jealous or expecting monogamy suggests a real understanding.
Yeah.
And maybe even a practical approach to the relationship.
And being so upfront about the rumors about his intimacy gives us a different perspective that challenges some of the stories that came out later. It makes you wonder if her being so non-demanding was part of what made their relationship last.
Maybe so. Now, one intriguing thing is that the Things article suggests there was a deeper, more artistic connection.
Oh, yeah.
They claim that Elvis's song, And I Love You So, was dedicated to Sheila Ryan.
Wow, really?
And that he called her My Adoration.
My adoration.
If that's true, it means she was a big inspiration for him.
Right.
Even if she wasn't as well known as some of his other partners.
And that article really emphasizes how her influence shows us the personal, often hidden side of what inspired his music.
Yeah, if that claim about And I Love You So is accurate, it adds a whole other layer of depth to their relationship.
It's such a classic love song.
It really is.
To think it could have been inspired by Sheila?
And that he called her My Adoration.
It suggests a really strong emotional bond.
It definitely makes you rethink how much she impacted his life and his music.
Then there's the memorabilia auction listing from GottaHaveRockandRoll.com.
Okay.
They're selling a handwritten love note from Elvis to Sheila, written on Graceland letterhead.
Wow.
Dated mid-70s.
A handwritten love note on Graceland letterhead.
That's pretty personal.
It is. It's like a real tangible piece of their connection.
Right.
Back then, a handwritten note meant a lot more than a text today.
Sure.
The fact that it's being auctioned now just shows how much people are still fascinated by Elvis's personal life.
Absolutely. Now let's look at some other perspectives.
Okay.
The YouTube transcript from EP Fan Archive includes some insights from someone close to Elvis.
Okay.
It sounds like Joe Esposito, although they don't say his name specifically.
Right.
This person describes Sheila as sweet and very beautiful, and even says she looks like Meg Ryan. They say that both Elvis and Sheila probably knew the relationship wasn't going to be any deeper, but that Elvis treated her really well.
That's good to hear.
And that she really got a great kick out of him and appreciated him.
So it sounds like it was positive for both of them.
Yeah, this account also mentions the competitive atmosphere among Elvis's inner circle.
Oh, yeah.
And the difficulties around intimacy because of Elvis's phobias and his reliance on medication at that time.
That's important context to keep in mind.
It wasn't always a simple love story.
Not at all. So this insider account basically confirms what Sheila said about her good qualities.
Exactly.
And that part about them knowing the relationship had limits, that adds another dimension to our understanding.
Definitely. And talking about the competition within Elvis's inner circle and his health issues.
That helps us understand the dynamics of his relationships during that time.
For sure. Finally, we have the interview with Elvis's father, Vernon Presley.
Okay.
He gives us that parental point of view. Although he doesn't say a lot about Sheila specifically, Vernon calls her another fine little girl among the women in Elvis's later life.
Okay.
And he was actually surprised when she married someone else pretty soon after breaking up with Elvis.
Interesting.
It's a brief mention, but it confirms she was a part of Elvis's life from the family's perspective.
Yeah, even though Vernon's description is short, it does acknowledge her presence in Elvis's life.
Right.
Maybe it's just a father's casual observation.
Yeah.
But his surprise at her quick remarriage, it could mean he thought the relationship with Elvis was more serious.
That's a good point. It's a small detail, but it tells us something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, here's something I found interesting.
Okay.
Sheila's entry on famous birthdays. mentions that she wrote a memoir.
She did?
Yeah, it's about her 3 years as Elvis's constant companion.
Wow.
It's called Fame on Me, but it didn't get much attention from publishers at first.
Really?
This suggests she had a lot to say about her time with Elvis.
This must have...
And there's this ElvisNews.com article from 2006
Okay.
that talks about Sheila breaking her silence with a new book.
Interesting.
It promised a whole new take on Elvis and his inner circle.
That's intriguing.
So it seems like she wanted to share her experiences publicly.
Yeah, the fact that she wrote a whole memoir, even if it didn't take off right away, it shows how much being with Elvis impacted her life. And that later book, promising a new take, it suggests she felt her perspective was unique and important for understanding Elvis's world. It makes you wonder what she revealed in that book.
I know, right? We should also remember how they met.
Oh, yeah.
The ElvisNews.com article and that EP fan archive transcript both describe it. Sheila was a 20-year-old runaway in the audience at one of Elvis's shows in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Elvis saw her and brought her backstage.
That's quite a story.
It is. It's almost like something out of a movie.
It adds another layer to their whole connection.
Totally, that detail about her being a 20-year-old runaway.
Yeah.
When they met, it adds this dramatic element to their story.
It does. It really speaks to the unexpected nature of fate.
And maybe it hints at something about Sheila herself at that time.
Right.
Maybe a vulnerability or a sense of unconventionality that Elvis connected with.
Finally, there's that Reddit thread we saw.
Yeah.
It's short, but it shows there's still a lot of fan interest in Sheila Ryan and her relationship with Elvis.
People are still curious.
They definitely are. It puts her within the context of his other relationships in the 70s.
Even just a quick mention on Reddit means something.
It does?
It means that even though she wasn't one of his most famous partners,
right,
Sheila Ryan is still someone people who follow Elvis's life are interested in.
She's part of the bigger picture of his personal story.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener?
I think this deep dive shows us how complex Elvis Presley's relationship with Sheila Ryan really was.
It wasn't just a simple story of fame and romance.
No, it wasn't. We
Yeah.
see moments of connection and genuine affection.
But also the challenges of being with someone as famous as Elvis.
Exactly. And the different accounts highlight how our memories and experiences can be so different.
Right.
That's why hearing Sheila's own voice in these sources is so important for understanding her side of things.
When we take a step back, Sheila Ryan's story reminds us that even the most famous people have complicated personal lives.
Right.
And we're always trying to piece those lives together from different viewpoints.
And those viewpoints can sometimes contradict each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sheila's experiences give us a way to see Elvis beyond the typical stories.
Here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
That Elvis may have dedicated And I Love You So to Sheila.
Right.
That adds so much emotional depth to their connection.
Yeah, a depth that's often overlooked.
It makes you wonder how many of his other really personal songs were inspired by people we don't even know about.
That raises a great point about creativity for artists.
Yeah.
If And I Love You So really was for Sheila, it means even relationships that weren't front-page news could have a big impact on his music and his emotions.
And it makes you think about the dynamic Sheila and others describe.
Right.
The need to play a role, the late-night requests, the constant presence of his inner circle. How does that compare to his relationships with other important women in his life?
Like Priscilla or Linda Thompson?
Yeah. Understanding those differences can give us a much richer, more nuanced understanding of Elvis as a person.
Totally. By comparing Sheila's experiences to what other women close to Elvis went through, we can start to see patterns in how he related to people.
What were his consistent needs and how did different people handle those complexities?
It encourages us to look at his personal history in a more critical and comparative way.
So here's a final thought for you to consider.
Yeah.
Sheila Ryan called her time with Elvis a big date.
Right.
And she later married James Kellen, another famous actor. Could her relationship with Elvis have been a formative experience for her? Did it shape how she understood love and relationships and how to deal with fame?
It's an interesting question.
Maybe looking into her later life and career could give us some more clues.
That's a good idea.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.